Hello there on this beautiful Wednesday lunchtime. Karen Kierson, social media trainer, can't even say it, my teeth aren't working, joined by the lovely Holly Wagner. Good afternoon, Holly.
Hello, how are you?
I'm good, and I think everybody's smiling because the sun is shining, although a friend of mine said, don't judge me because I wish the winter was here and I could get all wrapped up and put my big coat on. I'm going, no, that's not on. That's so,
No, I'm a summer baby all round.
me
Not
too. I think I was meant to live in a hot climate, and I think that's the crux of it. So, Holly, we recently met through the Athena network, which is a professional businesswomen's network, and we've since chatted and had one-to-ones because with what you do, it's very connected into my business. And actually, just as a sidebar, a lot of my clients, I'll say to them, do you want to do a live with me? We can talk about what you do, get you a little bit of traction, get people to know what you do. This is being live streamed onto my YouTube channel. And I go, nah. So would you like to tell everybody what you do and how you help them a little bit?
Yeah, I'd love to. So I run a company called 299 Video. And in a nutshell, we create promotional videos for small business owners who don't necessarily have, 4 figures plus to spend on video production, because video is traditionally a lot of money. It's a big investment. And while it's absolutely worth it, it's just out of reach for a lot of small business owners. So what 299 Video does is they're self-shot promos. So our clients film the content themselves. They film their piece to camera, but they get guidance with how to be confident on camera, how to make your surroundings look great. And ironically, my dog's running around the background, which you shouldn't really do, but not taking my own advice here. They get advice on how to write a really solid script, and they get an auto cue app as well. So if they're like me and I've got a terrible memory, they just read their words off their phone, makes it a bit easier for them. They then send us that piece to camera and we'll edit it into a really slick promo for them for their website, socials, and we deliver it in 7 days or less as well. So it's a much shorter timeline compared to traditional videography.
And that's incredible, isn't it? So, because that is the biggest thing. I know even if I've had new brand photographs taken, it will be a couple of weeks before I'm going to get them. And sometimes I think as business owners, when we have an idea for a new product, a concept, service, we want to get it out there quickly. So such a quick turnaround time is absolutely brilliant. And I love the idea about the teleprompter app because, I can talk for Britain, but I can't always talk in an organized fashion, and I'll record something. And that's why I tend to do lives, because then I never watch them back.
Yeah.
But if it's different, if it's a promotion for your business, it has to look right and it has to be coherent. So what sort of tips do you think you could share with us that will help people be more confident and to get more from their video time? Because video is not going away, is it?
No, it's only on the rise, and it has been for quite a while now. And I think particularly with the kind of creation of AI, I think people are leaning towards wanting to see real people as well. So the first thing I would say is that I always tell my clients to aim for 7 out of 10. You don't want to be perfect, because if you were having a conversation with your clients, it wouldn't be perfect. We have ums and ahs in our conversations naturally, and that's what people want. So I'd say lower the pressure on yourself, aim for that nice 7 out of 10. That's good enough. And while you do want your videos to be slick and professional, there is a difference between that and being 100% perfect and robotic. You want that kind of natural element to it. So I'd say take the pressure off yourself. We're all our own worst critic, our own worst enemy when it comes to judging how we look. And you made a very good point not to watch it back. You don't even have to watch it back in a promotional video. And a lot of my clients don't either, because I'm going to be editing it for them anyway. So they don't have to watch it if they don't want to. Although it is recommended once they have their final, that it's probably worth it. But the raw footage, you certainly don't have to. And a trick that works really well, then this isn't just kind of video specific, it's any sort of time that you feel nervous. something you can do to just calm that kind of fight or flight response that a lot of people get in many different situations is to just take a really deep breath in through the nose for 1 second, out for 2, and keep doing that until you get to a count of 5. So you end up breathing in the nose for 5 seconds, out for 10, and then repeat that. And all that does is it just relaxes your body. So if you are someone that notices that kind of adrenaline feeling, or sometimes people feel a bit short of breath, just taking the time to do that breath work can really help just to calm your body. So I'd say go easy on yourself, practice breathing, and just remember that no one else is thinking what you think about yourself. No one else is judging you for having a hair out of place or, slight stumble over your words. So just be kind to yourself, I think, is the biggest takeaway from that.
And I think that's really true, because I'll often say done is better than perfect.
Yes.
And also I think, and you've touched on AI, is that I think we get a little bit tired of perfection.
Yeah.
And people will be more like, I often talk to my clients, what we need to do is build know, like, and trust through our online presence. And video is one of the best ways to do that. But if you show up, and that's why when I haven't done them for a couple of weeks, actually, I usually do a Monday live where I just random ramblings of a middle-aged woman in deepest Leicestershire. And I sit here, so one of the things that I learned in lockdown was I went around the house with my laptop thinking, where's the best place to sit, where the light's stable, where the sound's okay and looks professional. But I never locked the cat away because it's real.
Yes.
And she's been the star of many a live. And I think I think the crux is that also, I think a lot of us know what our tics are. So I have a really bad tic, which is I play with my neck, whatever necklace I'm wearing. I know I do it. So when I'm recording, I sit on my hands.
Love that.
Stop me doing it, because also I talk with my hands, because if I'm doing this, you're not listening to this. And it's a really tough balance, because we want to get personality across. We want people to engage with us. And do you think that, so typically when you work with your clients, are they service providers? Do you have a particular kind of client that you work with?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. I mean, I actually run 2 video production businesses. So one of them's just over a decade old now. I set it up straight after uni, and that's full scale production. So we film and edit and everything. And with that business, it was a kind of a bit of an accident. I worked in the health and wellness space quite a lot. So a lot of gyms. I just started getting that type of client, and then it kind of snowballed from there. But with 299 Video, there's been a real broad range of industries, which is really interesting. And I really like working in those different industries. Although I think video works for any business, and I think everyone should be utilizing video, I think particularly for service-based businesses, it does lend itself even better, because you touched on it before, but people buy people, right? So, if someone's choosing you, let's say you're a therapist, your clients are going to work with you because they know you, like you, and trust you. And particularly in that space as well, where trust is super important, if you're using video, people are getting to know you and like you and trust you. So if you're a service-based business, I'd say it's even more important to do so. And a lot of people say to me, what if someone watches my video and they don't like me? And I'm like, great, that's perfect. Yeah. Good marketing is as much about turning away the wrong types of people as it is about attracting the right types of people into your business. So yeah, there's not a very long-winded answer, but there's not a specific niche that we tend to work with. But I would say that service-based tends to be the kind of clients that come to us. And I would say that video lends itself particularly well to those types.
And that makes absolute sense, because if we were selling, I don't know, a pen, you can see the product. You can see the product, you know what it is, you know what it does for you. It's not a big sell.
Yes.
Whereas if you're talking about training or learning and development, or I don't know, an accountant, for example. So oddly enough, I've got a meeting tomorrow with my new accountant. Now, I built know, like, and trust with her through seeing her at my in-person networking event. So that was really easy. But I actually said to her, I said, have you thought about doing video on your socials? Because accountancy is a bit of a tough crowd.
Yeah.
And people think, oh, it's just numbers. And not a lot of people think numbers are sexy apart from accountants. But if she could use video to talk about, I don't know, 5 ways to make doing your accounts really easy and straightforward, people hear her talk with a passion. It's totally different, isn't it?
Completely. And we've actually had an accountant client with the other business before, and you're absolutely right. You're not gonna, even if someone is incredible with numbers and they're the best accountant in the world, if you don't get on with them, you're not going to want to have that. You're not going to want to work with them. You're not going to want to be on meetings with them. So that just kind of proves the point. But you're absolutely right, and I really hope that they do take you up on that.
Yeah, I hope so, because oddly enough, I go to a weekly breakfast group, which is BNI.
Yes.
Excuse me. I'm going there tomorrow morning, and because at BNI we have to be very specific about what we're asking for. And there's a company started following me on Instagram, and their news feed is so blah. And but they're talking about training. They're talking about training. Now, all they're doing is literally all their graphics are the same. So people might say, purists might say, well, their Instagram grid looks immaculate.
Yeah.
But it looks boring. And if I'm looking for somebody to train my team in, I don't know, forklift skills or leadership or whatever, what is it about that content that's going to attract me? And you're absolutely right. Some people must hear my lives and go, God, what's she waffling on again about that? But what I try and do is actually bring it into my mission, which is about not having jargon. And when you have your video and you are talking about that, it becomes more relevant and people find it easy to understand. I think that's where it comes back to with the service providers. I can really see how that would work well for you, because if you're talking about, I don't know, a lawyer who does wills and probate and lasting powers of attorney, they could do a whole series of tips about questions, things to think about when you're planning your will. And that would be much less difficult to take on board if somebody's actually talking to you, isn't it?
100%. And I say this to a lot of my clients as well, that a confused person doesn't buy. They don't make that decision to get in touch with you and take those next steps, because they're overwhelmed and they don't know what you're talking about. And I think particularly this is why we help people with what to say on camera as well, because if I leave people to their own devices, often they think they need to sound really smart and like they know what they're talking about. So they use all these big words and they use all those sort of jargon that you mentioned earlier. And I say you can't do that. You need to use the language that your ideal clients are using when they come to you and they talk about what problems they have. And you want to position yourself as the solution, and you're going to look like even more of an expert if you're using that language and showing them that you understand what their pain points are and explaining why you're the solution. So you don't want to be over complicated with the wording that you use, but so many people think that's the way to go, because they want to sound super intelligent, like I know what I'm talking about, but it just won't work.
And that is that I think, and I was just writing some notes. I was with a really lovely charity I'm working with over in Peterborough. I was with them yesterday. I was just writing up the notes from our meeting, which I've got to send off today. And I said, we need to remember your content isn't about you, as in me. It's about the people who I'm going to support. And with them being a charity, it's the different types of people they support, whether it's through mental health services, through housing, through nurseries, childcare, that sort of thing. So I said, we need to come back to that. And that's where on a video, if you're talking about that, and I think it's great that you advise people in the script, because when it's our thing, sometimes we struggle to think beyond the immediate obvious thing, don't we? And that's the challenge.
Definitely. No, I completely agree with you. You've hit the nail on the head. But it's funny that so many people want to kind of talk about their experience and, their qualifications. And I always use the analogy that if you had something wrong with you and you went to a doctor's, I went to 2 different doctors, one of them's got all their qualifications on the wall, all their certificates, and they don't ask you any questions, they don't diagnose you, they just hand you some pills. You wouldn't take them because they haven't diagnosed you, they haven't had that conversation. Whereas if you go into the other doctors, nothing on the walls, he doesn't talk about his experience or his qualifications, but he asks you questions, does it hurt here? When is it more painful? Speaks to you and then offers you a solution. You're far more likely to trust that guy, despite not knowing, that he is an expert, but you know that he's an expert because of how he's spoken to you and how he's diagnosed you. And it's the same in business. You've got to diagnose your ideal clients with what the problem is that they have and offer a solution. And that's what builds trust. It isn't about talking about your experience and your qualifications and all the things people want to put in a video. It is completely about diagnosing the problem and offering a solution.
And I think that's absolutely balanced. I think wrapping up this chat, because I feel like I could talk on this subject for hours because I love it, is there an optimal time for a length of a video? Because I know because of our phones, because of technology, our attention span has massively reduced. What would you say if somebody was coming to you and say, I want to do a promotional video about my bookkeeping services? Is there an optimal length, would you say?
It's a really good question. It's one I get asked quite a lot, actually. And a lot of people disagree with what my answer is. And I'll say what it is, then I'll explain why it's that. So with a promotional video, we always say that 2 to 3 minutes is a really optimum time. A lot of people say, no, that's too long. I've heard otherwise. And to an extent, there is an argument to say that. And if you're creating reels and you're creating short content, like tips, for example, you mentioned tips earlier, which make for really great content. You do want those to be really short because they're sharp and they're snappy and people have really tiny attention spans now. However, in a promo, it has to follow a certain structure and it has to give people enough that it's enough of a pull for them to then want to make contact. And if it's too short, it won't do that. People will just kind of go, oh yeah, that's a cool video. And then they'll forget about you. And all of our promo videos are structured in a certain way because I've been in this industry for half my life and I've tested it and this is what works. So there certainly is an argument for shorter is best with a lot of other types of videos. But with promos, if you make them too short, you're not going to hit all those key points that a promo has to hit in order for it to be effective. So yeah, I'd say ideally closer to 2, but you can get away with 3, when it's necessary.
And I think that is important to remember because I know that sort of when if I'm doing a live, particularly on Instagram, I'm very consciously aware that I don't want to. But likewise, if I post a video that I've pre-recorded, I always think, is it too long? But you're right, because what you want to do, and it's that hook at the start, isn't it? I don't know, 5 questions you always want to ask a lawyer.
Yeah.
And you grab them and then, you're sandwiching it, aren't you? Because you want to get their attention, but you want to keep it there, isn't it? And that's the bit that's the clever stuff. And that's where they come to an expert like you.
No, thank you. No, you're absolutely right. You need enough time to build that know, like, and trust. And I think, like I said before, shorter often is ideal for certain content. But, in the video space, you do need to build that rapport up with people. So you can kind of get away with, something that's a little bit longer.
And I would say from a personal experience, sometimes, like all marketing, I think video is a long game. It's a strategic approach. And I think there can be multiple touch points. I met somebody earlier today online, but we've been in each other's worlds for about 3 years. Yeah. And I think sometimes it's those little prompts where somebody sees a video of you propping up and talking and then go, oh, I heard her speak at an event. And we have that, don't we, with video. It gives people that sense. It's like you said at the start, you've got your lovely dog, but it's real. It's absolutely real. And it's like we were saying before we came online, my cat, I don't usually lock her away if I'm doing a live. Unfortunately, she's asleep beside us now, thankfully, and quiet. But you know, we need to position I think there is that touch point. I remember the first time I got video, I spent quite a lot of money getting videos for different services on my website. I need to redo them at some point. And I thought, oh, this is it. This is it. This time next year, Rodney will be millionaires, you know, all of that. And it didn't happen. But then I realized that actually people will digest my videos when they're ready.
That's exactly it. Yeah, I think the statistic is something like people need to see you, you know, in various touch points about 13 times before they kind of decide to make that decision and you know, get in touch with you. So it's a lot, but sometimes there are stories. I remember I worked with a lady a few years ago, and she released her video. It was one that I'd actually filmed. It was a promotional video, and she messaged me to say she'd had a call within 1 minute of uploading it from someone that wanted to course. So I don't want to give false expectations. You know, that is a kind of unicorn situation, but it just goes to show that, you know, you don't know who's out there. And you also get a lot of people that I call lurkers on social media, where you don't know they exist. They're just following you. And then one day they say, oh yeah, I followed you for like 2 years. They've never commented, never done anything. Yeah. But, you know, you're sort of working on them in the background. So, you know, it's I don't want anyone to feel disappointed and record a video and, like you were saying, and not get anything from it. It is a bit of a long game, but the sooner you do it, the sooner you're going to get the results. So
I think it is absolutely brilliant. I'm going to put Holly's LinkedIn profile under this recording, so do reach out and connect with her. Holly, thank you for joining me this lunchtime, and I'll speak to you soon.
Amazing. Thanks so much for having me. See you soon.
See you later.